All right, with so much anticipation, let's join now Mzwandile Mbeje, the SABC News political editor. He's joining us this evening on possibly what to expect from the president. Mzwai, very good evening to you. Thanks indeed for your time. So the last time that the president had addressed the nation, it was quite a tough talk, and much of his focus was on specific areas of concern. Your Port Elizabeth, for example. Are we expecting this evening the president to talk on a much national approach on the crisis which we're currently facing?
A very good evening to you, Griselda. In fact, I think he perhaps wishes he may have spoken to the entire nation over a week ago when, remember, he specifically addressed the citizens of Nelson Mandela Metro. But given what has happened and what has transpired since Griselda, clearly there is a need for the president to speak to all South Africans, because immediately after he spoke, then the health minister announced that the country has entered a second wave. I mean, we are averaging 8,000 infections per day. I think if I was just doing a few calculations, I think for about four or 5 days, we've been recording about 8,000 infections. So you can see we are going back to the peak, and it's during the summer season when people are out and about. So clearly this is a cause for concern as people prepare to go for holidays. I think the address today, Griselda, will focus on the entire nation. Yes. It's not going to be only hotspots, because you deal with certain hotspots, it then spreads to those that are not attended to. So it will be a national address.
Mzwandile, lots of speculation at the moment. Of course, we'll hear from the president at 8 o'clock this evening. But could tighter restrictions be on the cards relating to your super spreader events, your beaches, where there's already been quite a lot of speculation about what's going to take place there? We know how everyone flocks to the beaches during this time, and I think in particular because it's been quite a hard year.
Oh yes, this is a holiday season for South Africans, and it's a summer season. It's the time where families go out in their numbers to enjoy. It's the time where big gatherings take place because people are in a festive mood. I mean, you've just correctly said this has been a hard year, and people would really love to be with their families. But here is the danger. So those events, those gatherings are super spreader events, as you would recall what happened with those rage parties. In fact, in Durban a couple of days ago, that rage party, which was attended by over 1,000 people, so over 900 of them tested positive. Yes, it was young people. Many of them were asymptomatic. But here is the difficulty. When they go back home, they go to their parents who are elderly. Yes. They go to their parents who may be sick. So those people will be infected. So basically, given that we are in this kind of a situation, I think the president may talk about tighter restrictions, particularly on the beaches. He may talk about those big gatherings and perhaps the funerals. Remember, the number had been increased from 50 to 100. But this is the other thing, Griselda, which I think the president will update the nation on. Remember, today he had a meeting, he co-chaired a meeting of COVAX. South Africa is part of those countries that are finding the vaccine. So should those vaccines be found, so South Africa will also get its share. So given that he became part of that meeting, I assume that he will give us an update. So how far away? We have seen in America that it's been rolled out. Pfizer has been rolled out.
Yes. And
of course the UK. So countries now are starting to look at the vaccine, but of course, for all of us to have access to that vaccine will still take time. But as South Africa, because we are at the forefront of finding it, we definitely will benefit, and I expect the president to definitely update the nation on this one.
That's correct, Mzwandile. In fact, after I'm done speaking to you, we will talk about some of those several countries, including Russia, US and Britain, that have already announced a rollout of that COVID-19 vaccine. But a lot of questions about, restrictions. It was very pointed in the last time that the president had addressed the nation. We spoke a bit about that. But perhaps, Mzwandile, tighter restrictions on the sale of alcohol. We saw what happened the last time the president had addressed us. And these super spreader events, others are attributing it to people not adhering to these protocols, in particular once they've consumed alcohol. Do we expect anything perhaps on that?
Oh yes, you know, the president is really between a hard place, between a rock and a hard place.
That's right.
On one hand, Griselda, he needs to make sure that he manages the economy, and there were already signs that the economy was rebounding, which is supposed to be good news for South Africans. But whilst that positive situation is developing, you have something else on the other hand. The disease or the virus is spreading fast, and as it spreads fast, it is starting to kill many, many people. And of course, as more people die, of course, the economy will be affected. Yeah. So what does he do? So he needs to look at all those things. But I think what he will do is that he may not then do a blanket ban like it happened last time. As I said, that he needs to manage the economy very carefully. But you may have a situation perhaps where the sale of alcohol may then be limited to certain hours, because what the evidence really is that once people have consumed alcohol, so they literally let the guard down. They forget about masks, they forget about social distancing, they forget about washing of hands and the hygienic situation. So you need to be able to manage all of those things. So alcohol, unfortunately, tends to contribute negatively in all that I've mentioned. So you may have a situation where perhaps there are certain restrictions. If even the issue of the curfew, so that people are not just out unnecessarily. So we may see it perhaps come back. And of course, those big gatherings, Griselda, which are a big problems. So they may then be reduced. And of course, the issue of the beaches. South Africa is going on holiday, and you know South Africans love to go to the beaches. And those beaches receive millions and millions of people. How do you social distance in that environment? How do you wear your mask in the sea? And how do you get clean when you mingle with people? So all those things are contributing factors. So I think the president will look very closely at those. But most of all, Griselda, it is in our hands. He can tell us what to do. If we as South Africans decide to ignore those warnings, we are in trouble.
I think you've done your public service duty for the day. Thank you very much, Mzwandile Mbeje, SABC News political editor. We'll speak to you again shortly after 7 o'clock. Keep your ear on the ground for us there on what to expect from the president. In related news, opposition